Well, I think that people should start to see, I don't know if they are, but I think the pandemic helped kind of open people's eyes to a lot of things. And one of those being that your local politics matter a lot, because that is where, I live in Los Angeles. We were in lockdown here locally, but I'm from Idaho and I'd go visit Idaho all the time to my family and I'd be free. That's where I'd experience freedom and I'd get my little glimpse of freedom and then I'd come back to lockdown Los Angeles.
I mean,
Um,
I went
and
to
people, I think, realize then that it's the local government that you're electing that is actually controlling a lot of these things, and the school boards, and whether or not your kids are going to wear masks or they're going to be mandated for vaccines. And I think people are starting to see the local matters a lot.
Yeah, and that's why I mean we both share the idea that DeSantis was a hero. I mean, he stood up.
Yeah.
He wasn't always great, but when he realized that he was wrong, he didn't just keep going. He stood up and said, "Okay, that's it, guys. This is over." There was that one glorious picture of him having a beer with a couple of guys with his mask off, and that was just so iconic. So absolutely, it's. I mean, yeah.
I was watching this one video. I think I put it on my Twitter account. Milk Bar TV did this video of an Australian politician or an Australian, maybe the health minister or something like that, right? Somebody in government who was very much for vaccine mandates and lockdowns and all of this. And he just was recently on TV and he said the most amazing thing that I have not heard any American politician or any American bureaucrat or anybody say, where he says, I was wrong. He says, I was part of the group that was championing this. And he's like, look, I got that wrong. And I hope that next time, if there is another pandemic, we really reflect strongly on what we did. And I hope we make different decisions. I mean, it was just like, what? And he was saying this on a news television show and just thinking, why cannot we get a single politician to say that here now?
Yeah, that's exact. I mean, that's it's stunning. And the reason why it's so stunning, as you say, is because it never happens. And
Never.
the last time that I remember it happening in a very fundamental way was when the late Walter Jones, representative from North Carolina in the U.S. House, realized that all of his war talk. Remember, he was the one who got us to call them freedom fries, right?
Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
congressional cafeteria. He
Not the
was the
French
most,
fries. We don't like the
right,
French.
because
Yeah.
they didn't want to go to Iraq with us. They were
Yeah. Well,
evil.
the times have changed and we'll talk about that soon.
Yeah.
But
But he was gung ho, and then all of a sudden he realized I was wrong. And not only did he apologize, he spent the remainder of his life apologizing. He wrote a personal note by hand to every single soldier's family who died in Iraq, apologizing
wow.
for the role he played in making that happen. So it's very, very, very rare.
Yeah, it is rare. The only other time I can think of a politician saying I was wrong and actually using that phrase, I was wrong, it's actually Sarah Palin.
Hmm.
She did a video a few years back about Julian Assange, and
Oh,
she
wow.
said, I was wrong.
Good for her.
Yeah, yeah. She did a whole video saying, I was wrong. I was wrong on this. So, it's rare. It doesn't, and that's really unfortunate in our American politics.
Yeah.
Since you brought up the French and those freedom fries, let's talk about NATO. What the hell? So, Emmanuel Macron, what is he's wanting to send troops to Ukraine, ground troops. So now they're at the point, things are so desperate, apparently, that Macron is like, hell yeah, let's send all these troops in. So these other NATO countries are saying, no, I'm not interested in sending ground troops into Ukraine to battle Russia. We're not really looking to get into an actual hot war with Russia. And Emmanuel Macron is like, yes, we are. What in the world is going on there?
I had some pretty stupid hair in the 80s, but I have to say, if any of your viewers go on Twitter and find that clip of Emmanuel Macron in the 80s dancing to disco new wave music, I'll tell you what, you cannot unsee it. And I would just warn
I'm
them,
going to look for
you
this.
cannot unsee it. It's awful.
Emmanuel Macron in the 80s?
With a lot of makeup on and a lot of weird hair. So just saying. But I can just imagine little Manny. He's like playing with his soldiers. We gotta go with it. We gotta go to war. And then his wife screams from the other room, you stop that. Yes, mom. Sorry. He's what a character he is.
Is this like he's got spiky hair?
Yeah, he's got a lot of different kinds of hair.
Oh, I see. Are you sure that video was real?
I don't know, but
I think that was AI. I
uh,
saw that video.
I don't know, but I wish I hadn't seen it. I wish I had. But yeah, I mean, There is a lot of stuff going on under the surface right now on the Ukraine war. It's very obvious to everyone uh, at this point that it's a losing battle, it's a losing game, but they cannot stand to lose. There's no reverse gear for these people. So on one hand, it sounded like an act of desperation. On the other hand, it sounded like a very solid rebuff by everyone else, literally, except Holland. Little Holland is they're rip roaring to go for some reason on the war. But I think it was thrown out. They're essentially behind the scenes. I think is a mini war going on between France and Germany, and I think this has a lot to do with it. They're at each other's throats over this.
Hmm.
They're PO'd at each other. The Germans don't think the French have given enough to Ukraine, and so the French. So Macron came out with this. So there's a lot of stuff happening. You know the old proverb about when the ship is sinking, the rats are scurrying to leave, and I think that's a lot of what we're seeing here. But the interesting thing is that Scholz, the Chancellor of Germany, now he came out yesterday, I think, or even today, saying that there are British troops in Ukraine helping them fire the British missiles. And we don't want to send our missiles because we'd have to send German troops to help them fire them because they don't know how to do it. And if we send German troops, that would mean we are a party to the war. And so if you think about that logically, what he's essentially saying is that UK is a party to the war.
Yeah.
That's pretty serious.
Yeah. I think there've been there've been mercenaries who've been certainly fighting, foreign mercenaries, Western mercenaries fighting in the war.
Yeah,
But
but what you get is NATO soldiers who are decommissioned, and then they
right.
immediately put on a new shirt.
Right, exactly. That's what I was thinking those
Yeah,
mercenaries really were, is that it's just like, oh, here's a way for Americans and for NATO to go and fight in the war without officially fighting in the war, right? They have
yeah.
special skills. They're there, they're training these guys. And yeah, we're essentially in this war. I mean, this is a losing war. Why can't we just decide it's it's we just really need to get Ukraine to the negotiation table with Russia?
Well, we have decided. I mean, the vast majority of Americans are against sending the $61 billion to Ukraine. I mean, every single poll shows how opposed Americans are to this. But there is the political class, and there's
Right.
also the strength of the military-industrial complex. I mean, this is a shot in the arm. Even Victoria Nuland, just a couple of days ago, she said, "Come on, guys. Don't you know that the vast majority of the money that we spent on Ukraine stays right here in America?" So, I mean, she's literally saying the quiet part out loud.
Right.
We are going to steal money from working class Americans, and we are going to transfer it to very wealthy people inside the Beltway. That's
Right.
essentially what she's saying.
Right. It goes to the military industrial complex. So don't you guys
This,
understand?
yeah, she said it. This is going to create jobs. What? Yeah, for millionaires, right?
Right.
Billions.
Yeah. Wow. What
Yeah.
do you think the problem is? How do we fix it? This I mean, you've been fighting this battle for a long we're talking about this battle for a long time, in the battle for a long time. You kind of know more of the ins and outs. You've been in DC, lived there for a long time. I mean, how do we fix this?
Well, it goes back to what we started off talking about: is people of character, and we have to have people of character in positions of power. It's very simple. I mean, in the early days in the Iraq War, which we were fighting against at the time, with Dr. Paul, we put together a very broad coalition beyond left and right. We worked very closely with Dennis Kucinich and Barbara Lee, and on the right side, John Duncan and Walter Jones and many others. That's the key. But you have politics has taken such a strong role now that even if you like maybe Ro Khanna, he's from your neck of the woods almost. He was terrified. He's been terrified of speaking out because his own party's in power.
Yeah.
And so that's a big problem. So you have to, I mean, I think the question is, do we have to have a complete financial bankruptcy to match what Dr. Paul would say is our moral bankruptcy? Maybe that will change things. And that's why I think we feel like we're in a race against time, because the whole thing is going to go up in flames. We have to have the ability to say, listen, here's why they failed. Everything about our society is fake. Even our literal bloody money is fake. It's paper. And I don't know if you saw
If
it.
that.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw it. It's CPAC. There's this fellow from, was it El Salvador, who is very, very famous. He just got reelected by 80%. I'm not necessarily a fan because he basically
Bukele. I'm not pronouncing his name right. Yeah.
I mean, he cleaned the place up, but he put everyone in jail. Maybe that's a solution for them. It's not for me to say. But he had an amazing statement. He said, "We got to prepare for America's downfall because they've been able to live for decades on fake money, and everything is built on this this house of sand created by the United States. And he didn't say it specifically, but it was after Nixon closed the gold window in the early 1970s when our dollar wasn't backed by anything. And so this is really an emperor's new clothes moment. Suddenly, everyone's going to look around and say, "Holy crap, this is a piece of paper or a piece of digit."
Digit.
Yeah, a digit. Yeah, and so that I think will change the warfare state that we live in, the welfare warfare state.
I kind of wonder the same thing if we just have to have total collapse before we can actually make change, because it just seems like every time we have a chance, every time I feel like there's hope, we're actually people get it now. We're actually going to make some change. They just shift the narrative on us slightly enough to get people to then gobble it back up. Just when people don't want to gobble it, they say, "Oh, no, 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 that's not what this is. Oh, you don't like CBDCs? That's okay. We're going to create this other thing. It's not a CBDC at all. We're totally for freedom.
Yeah.
This is going to keep you free." And yet it's the exact same thing, right? Or they say, "Oh, okay, we're going to totally shun these Marxist no more Marxism and stuff, but we're for freedom." And then they reel in the freedom crowd. They figure out ways to get people. And one thing I noticed with the conservatives that were really talking a lot about freedom, and they were the warriors for a while here since the Trump election. Then when it came to, if they figured out the button to push, they knew the button, like with the left, it was racism. Right after Donald Trump was elected, it was like anything racist. If you just said it was racist, suddenly like they were foaming at the mouth. And on the right, they figured out it was kids. They were like, "Oh, okay, if I just call the person a pedophile."
No.
Like if we just go after, if we say it's kids, it's the kid, they're harming children, that will trigger a person that has a different value set, a different morality or different ethic, whatever. And they figured out the hot button issue and they manipulate that. And so I see this happening time and time again, the manipulation of our feelings, really, of the things we
Gaslighting.
care about. Yeah, gaslighting us and just manipulating our soft spots, manipulating our feelings and the things that we care about, to get us to constantly just fall in line again and to say, "No, this is what I have. We must censor because of this. We must take control of your life because of this." But this is different. I hear that all the time on both sides. But this, this is different.
I'm really a libertarian, but I'm really anti-war, but this is different.
Right, except this war, right?
The problem
So I
is,
just kind of wonder, like, what can we possibly do? I mean, so then I kind of think maybe it has to, we have to collapse. And then when we collapse, we rebuild. But that's so scary because I don't know how we would rebuild. Which direction would we rebuild in? Because it could go different ways.
I mean, that's, I think, what Dr. Paul would say. Those of us who, like yourself, who see and correctly identify the problem, we have like a special obligation, I think, to do whatever we can to try to, for lack of a better word, convert others, to try to enlighten others as to what's really going on. No, we're not defending America by having bases in Syria. I mean, just doing the best that we can. We have a special obligation to do that. But the problem is, I mean, we kind of live in a post-truth society. If you think about it, there are no consequences to lying. The first time Joe Biden ran for president was a long time ago. I think it was in the 80s or something. And it turns out that he was caught. He had plagiarized some test or something in college, and that was it. It was a shock. His career was over.
Yeah.
Contrast that to now people openly, boldly lying, and there's no consequence whatsoever to it, lying with a straight face. Look at some of the Supreme Court hearings when they would come forward and say things that were outrageous. Look what they, look what they did to Assange, for example. All of these were just bold lies. There's no consequences. So the truth is now just sort of irrelevant. It's just another weapon.
Hey guys, be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you like this segment. Now you might be wondering, this seems like it's part of a bigger show. You're right, it is. The full show is at KimIversonShow.com. So what you're watching is just a clip. And if you want to get the full experience, then you got to go to KimIversonShow.com. The show airs Monday through Friday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern at KimIversonShow.com. That is where you can watch the full show. Here, you just get clips. So click on the link down below, go to the full show, enjoy. Otherwise, I'll see you next time right here. And be sure, once again, like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.